So I'm Richard Esplin. I work with Jeff Potts on developer outreach and community outreach at Alfresco. I get to help with a lot of our technology platforms like the wiki and the forums and some of those things. If it works, it's to my credit. If it doesn't work, it's not my fault. Something else happened. No, I'm teasing. It goes both ways. So what the goal of this presentation is to discuss a little bit about the add-on site. So who here has been to the Alfresco add-on site? Has anybody been here, been to this site? A few people? So it sounds like most people don't know what it is yet. So about a year ago now, I helped set up this site. It's a directory of Alfresco add-ons. So what's an add-on? An add-on is anything that you can use to enhance your Alfresco experience. The key is that an add-on is a piece of software you install or you download or you integrate. It's not consulting. It's not a solution. Solutions can be made of add-ons, but add-ons are specific pieces of software you can use. So the add-on directory now has over 200 add-ons in it. The vast majority of them are written by non-Alfrescans who have contributed that add-on. We don't host add-ons anymore. We used to have a hosting platform called Forge. That went away, and because there's a lot of better hosting companies and options out there. And so wherever you decide to put a project related to Alfresco, you can come to Alfresco add-ons and start a directory entry here. So when you're looking for something to improve your Alfresco install, this is a great place to stop, to check out and see if it's a one-stop shop to solve that Alfresco problem. So my goal today is to give you an idea of some of these add-ons. On the add-on site, there's a rating area. You can log in and you can vote for add-ons that you've liked or that have helped you. And so not many people have used that voting, and not as many as I expected in the past year, but there's a number of add-ons that have received a lot of votes. A lot for this context, meaning 12 to 15. That's a lot in the add-on site. But they're good add-ons. And so my goal today is to save you some time and introduce you to some of these add-ons. So I'm starting with the highest rated add-ons on the add-ons project. But some are not, some really exciting ones aren't highly rated yet. So we'll mention a couple of those. I wanted to find ones that I find interesting, that solve a development problem, that deserve some more exposure. The other thing I did was we're only going to talk in detail about add-ons that are not on the engineering roadmap. There are a number of add-ons that I was excited to discuss, and then I talked with Mike Farman, and you're going to get them anyway. So I'll leave those for other times. But we're going to talk about a broad view, not a deep view. So we're introducing you some useful tools. We'll save you some research time. We'll look at a couple of tools in depth over this hour. But my goal is not to replace your own research. The goal is to make it more productive, easier for you to find stuff, give you an idea what's out there. But you're going to have to figure out if add-ons make sense for you, or which add-ons make sense for you. So let's talk about some add-ons that give you a brief overview of where you can learn about other add-ons. So there are a number of add-ons discussed in other DevCon sessions. So this is last session, so you'll have to catch recordings. I can thankfully report that the vast majority of the recordings worked out in San Jose, and a number of them worked out in Berlin, so you should be able to learn about these. We'll get those posted the next week or two. Will Abson has done a number of add-ons as part of the Share Extras project. If you've never been to the Share Extras project on Google Code, you should. There's loads of add-ons there that Will and his team have worked on as part of their community project. And he did a session yesterday called Great Dashlets, where he talked about a number of dashlets that you can install in your Alfresco system to give you various little bits of functionality. And so that's a great place to check out. The JavaScript console is my favorite add-on, and I was really excited to demo it. And then I looked at the session list and saw that Florian, the author of the JavaScript console, had a whole session on it in Berlin. I think the recording worked for that one. I'm not certain. Hopefully it did, and you'll be able to check that out. The JavaScript console is definitely an add-on you should look at. It allows you to, in your developer environment, install in the admin console a JavaScript dashlet, pretty much, a JavaScript page component that lets you do JavaScript in the context of your repository. And so it's a really great way to prototype code, to see, to do queries and do searches and kind of figure out how things will work in a running system. And then you can move it into a more packaged format later. So it makes development far faster. Eric presented on the site extensions project yesterday. The site extension project is a really nice way to generate a bunch of boilerplate framework for a site. So when you create a new site in Share, you can select your site type, and it lets you define custom site types there. And it generates that site with various pieces that you can then go in and customize. So if you need to develop your own site, or if you want to develop your own site, check out the site extensions project, watch the recording from Eric's presentation yesterday, and you'll get a good idea for a way to quickly start on that. Another excellent add-on is the PDF toolkit. Nathan and Jared, both Alfresco guys, started the PDF toolkit, and Nathan's maintaining it now, and he presented on that yesterday. I guess he presented on earlier today. And the PDF toolkit is a great way to, it does a lot of the things that our PDF transformer currently does, and much more. It allows you to slice and dice PDFs. It allows you to do annotations. It allows you to do comments. It allows you to do a lot of additional features. It's an open source project. It's highly requested by customers, and so they build it all, and you should check it out. Another frequent request we get is to integrate Alfresco with front-end toolkits, front-end web frameworks. And Drupal's a common one. And CMS views is the way we do that within Alfresco. So Ian Norton works on my team at Alfresco, and he built the CMS views add-on. And what it does is it allows you to, in the Drupal world, every page can be built with what's called a view, which is pretty much a query into the content store. And CMS views allows that query to be your Alfresco repository. Theoretically, it's CMS, and it should work with any CMS compliant repository. But of course, we've tested it on Alfresco, and that's kind of where we spend our time. It's very nice. If you are using Drupal and you have Alfresco, you should watch the recording of Ian's presentation last session, or I guess immediately right now. It's going on. So that recording will be posted, and you should check that out. And there's some other places you can learn about CMS views as well. Some other places to learn about great add-ons. Every year, we hold a Dashlet Challenge, last year and this year. So this year was the second. And the Dashlet Challenge winners is a great way to find out about some great add-ons, great Dashlets that might be useful for you and Share. There's a wiki page that lists those Dashlet Challenges, the Dashlet Challenge winners. I know a couple people here submitted Dashlets in this year's presentation, this year's challenge. And if you want a short list of they were judged, we thought they were pretty cool, they're worth looking at. Now, the most frequent way that people do integrations with Alfresco is through CMIS. And so there are a number of add-ons around the Apache Chemistry project and around CMIS libraries that allow you to interact with Alfresco external from the repository over these standard APIs. And we're not going to discuss those in a lot of detail now, because there are a lot of other places to find out about those. Of course, Jeff's new book coming out is one of those places. It gives you the best overview around right now, so it's probably worth checking out. But if you want to interact with Alfresco programmatically from Java, from C#, .NET World, from Python, or from PHP, you should go to the Apache Chemistry project and see those libraries. The other important thing about interacting with Alfresco, creating an add-on through CMIS, is that CMIS is a least common denominator standard. And so it doesn't do any Alfresco specific stuff. And probably the most painful one is aspect support, which allows you to get things like the title information in Alfresco. But there are add-ons that are extensions to CMIS for most of these languages. So there's an Alfresco Java CMS extension. There's an Alfresco Python, an Alfresco CMS lib Python extension that I don't know about an Alfresco specific one for .NET. And the PHP one needs some additional love. But these are out there, and they're there for you to use. So if you're using CMIS to interact with Alfresco, you should probably make sure that you've looked at some of those extensions as well. Tech Talk Lives are another great way to learn about Alfresco extensions. So every first Wednesday of every month, with the exception this year of the 4th of July and DevCon, we had a Tech Talk Live, and that's a great way for Jeff to invite somebody in to sit down and have a conversation about something they're doing related to Alfresco. And there have been a number of times we've invited people to come and talk about their add-ons as part of Tech Talk Live. Ian did a CMS views Tech Talk Live in March. And so if for whatever reason the recording doesn't work out, you can still check out the Tech Talk Live. But the recording from today is obviously the most current. In episode 53 was in February, I think, was when we had Mike Priest on. Mike Priest is responsible for the top-rated add-on in the directory right now, and it's the form design tools. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. But that's a great way. We're not going to discuss it in a lot of detail now. And so if you want to learn more about it, you should check out episode 53 in the wiki of Tech Talk Live. Also, episode 51, which was early February of this year, so I guess Mike's was March, is on packaging, distributing, and finding add-ons. And so we had a number of Alfresco engineers, including Jared and Peter and Jeff, that all discussed how do you package add-ons, and we launched the add-on site that month, and so it was about using the add-on site to find good add-ons. And if you are interested in building add-ons and kind of unsure on what facilities are there for packaging add-ons or integrating with Alfresco, that's a great way to learn more. There have been a number of talks. Unfortunately, we didn't have a talk specifically on that topic, but I know Jared Otley, Kevin Dorr, and Peter all touched on this topic here at DevCon. And so you might get more current information out of their DevCon talks. But episode 51 of Tech Talk Live is the most comprehensive discussion of that topic. There's also a wiki page on that topic. I forgot to put the link. But in the wiki, there's a page on packaging add-ons that goes through details on how to do that. And of course, the add-ons at alfresco.com is a great way. There's a highest rated area, and that's what we're going to discuss today. And we're going to use that site more to highlight good add-ons. So preparing for this DevCon really sparked my interest in how rich our add-on ecosystem is and how important it is to make it easier for you guys to know which add-ons are quality and give people make it easier for people to evaluate good add-ons. And so we're going to be doing more at addons.alfresco.com to do that. So check it out in a month, and hopefully we'll have more stuff there. So let's talk about the highest rated add-ons. As I mentioned a minute ago, I went through a bunch of add-ons and said, I'm going to demonstrate this to everybody, and then for whatever reason decided that it wasn't appropriate for this discussion. And what I realized is I need to explain to all of you some of this reasoning so that you get a quick overview of the top-rated add-ons. So this is in order of the add-ons, the top-rated add-ons in the addons.com, the addons.alfresco.com website. And the goal here is to give you an idea of the broad view, and maybe you'll find something that works for your site that you want to investigate in more detail. So Mike Priest's form model management is the top-rated add-on. It allows you to, it provides a GUI for building Alfresco forms, building Alfresco content models, and generating forms from those models. It's pretty mature at this point. As I was preparing this presentation, I went back and looked. It's been the first time I looked there since he did his Tech Talk Live in February, and I was impressed at how much he's done in the past 6 months. And so, if you're interested, check out the Tech Talk Live, but don't stop there. Actually go to the site and read the wiki and read the latest release notes. It's got even more functionality. But since there's a whole hour on that topic available online, I'm not going to cover it in more detail now. But it's worth checking out if you have that need. The JavaScript console I already mentioned, it's got its own DevCon session, but it's very useful. And if you're doing development on Alfresco, you should check out the JavaScript console. There's a good chance it's going to save you time. The Gallery Plus Dashlet was a Dashlet Challenge winner from last year, and it allows you to have a very nice digital asset management gallery view in Alfresco. And I was talking to Ray about how he used a lot of the ideas from the Gallery Plus Dashlet in his new capabilities in the gallery view in the document library of Alfresco 4.2. And so that's how come I'm not going to cover in more detail, because a lot of those same concepts have made it into Alfresco core. But if your customer, if your organization is using Alfresco that's earlier than 4.0, earlier than 4.1, and you want the sort of gallery view, then you should check out the Gallery Plus Dashlet, because it gives you a lot of those capabilities for older versions of Alfresco before we got it integrated into core. The recent comments Dashlet is a Dashlet Challenge winner, or Dashlet Challenge entry from last year, and it's a highly useful Dashlet, one of the things we recently get asked is, how do you follow a conversation in Alfresco? We want to know the most recent comments in a specific site. And that's what this Dashlet does. It's really easy to install. You just install it as an AMP, and then you add it as a Dashlet to your site, and there you are. You've got the most recent comments in that site. So very easy, very useful. We get asked about that all the time, and there it is. That was contributed by a member of the community. The compress and download action is very useful. It allows you to go through the document library and select a bunch of items and hit compress and download, and you get a zip file with those items. Highly requested, and it's on the roadmap to be released in 4.2. I was playing with it a little bit in the latest community release, and there it is. So if you're interested in getting that sort of functionality for older versions of Alfresco, then that action on the add-on site is the most effective way to do that. The Alfresco encryption module is highly rated in the add-on site. It allows you to encrypt your content in Alfresco. The challenge with the encryption module is that it meets a specific, encryption is one of those use cases that has a lot of details. It's one of those functionalities that has a lot of use cases. There are a lot of different ways to handle encryption of your content. And this meets one of those cases. We are looking at officially addressing this need. I don't have a specific time that I can discuss with you, but I did discuss with Mike Farman. I'm sure he'd be happy to discuss it with you guys, with anybody that's interested in more detail. But the summary is, if you need that functionality now, you should check out that module and see if it meets your need. And, hopefully it'll be in Alfresco Core at some point in the near future. Another very valuable request, especially at our European conference, is when you're dealing with multilingual content, Share shows you your content, shows you the translation in Share based on the locale of your browser. And it shows you the content, the property fields based on the locale of your browser. And frequently, you don't want to mess with your browser locale in order to see content in another language. And this, the change share locale action lets you do that. It's a really easy, it adds a button in Share, and you press it and it changes your locale. We worked on a very similar way to do this. It's a document library, it's part of the hackathon before San Jose, so 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Actually, it was before Berlin, so a week and a half ago. We did this a slightly different way. Instead of having it be a button in Share, it's a filter in the document library. And so it filters your content based on the locale. And I'm not sure which one of those code bases are on the roadmap, but I've been told that this need is on the roadmap and is being formally addressed by our engineering team. And they've looked at both the approaches that the community took. And so if that's something you need now, it's available in the change share locale. And if it's something you need in the future, then hopefully we'll get it done before you need it. Another really valuable add-on is the bulk file system import tool. So the bulk file system import tool is the fastest way to get content into Alfresco. It takes Alfresco off of your disk and loads it into the repository on the same disk. It just handles all the pointers and all the Alfresco management of that content. It was contributed by Peter and a number of people that aren't part of Alfresco that worked with Peter Monks. And he did a Alfresco DevCon session on it last year. With the slides are online at SlideShare. He goes through a lot of details on his environment and metrics to optimize performance of imports and to be very efficient. So if that's a need you have, you should check out the bulk file system import tool. Now the thing is, in 4.0, this went into core. But the way it went into core, it took long enough between engineering, moving it into Alfresco core, and then getting it back to the community, that the community innovated in that time frame and they forked. So the Google Code project with the bulk file system import tool is different from what's in Alfresco core. We're working on resolving that and putting them back together. But for now, it's probably worth, if it's something you need, if what's in core doesn't meet your needs, it's highly likely that the Google Code project has a lot of additional features that would be useful for you. So just know that they're a little bit different and that you should check out both if what's in core isn't meeting your need for whatever reason. Next two add-ons is the Alfresco and Atlassian Confluence add-on. So this one was, the specific one that's highly rated is done by, I just forgot their name. That's what happens when you stand in front of a bunch of people. It's done by a non-Alfresco partner who contributed this through the community, and I've never played with their plugin, but it is highly rated in the store. I really like Confluence as a wiki, and I have previously used Rivet Logic's Confluence plugin. Don't see any Rivet people here at the moment. But so if you need to connect Alfresco and Confluence, you should understand that the one that's rated in the add-on site it probably works fine. It's also the one that's in the Atlassian store. But there's another option on the add-on site as well that's done by Rivet Logic, and you should check out both. I didn't play with either of those for this presentation, but if that's your need, you should play with both. And then the next one is Audit Surf. Audit Surf is a really nice way to plug into the Alfresco audit system. It looked like a very nice project. I was thinking about demoing it for everybody here, but all the documentation is in French, and that's not my strong point. So that'll have to happen another time. But if you're using auditing a lot and you want to customize the way audit is displayed in Share, or you want to display audit data outside of Alfresco using Surf, then Audit Surf might help you meet that need. Now, there are a handful of highly rated add-ons that I wish I had time for, that I attempted to prepare for, and just didn't get it ready for a demo for this session. But I wanted to raise awareness about these and give you a little bit of information in case it meets your needs. And one of the coolest add-ons in the directory, I think, is the MetaDB connector by Venzia IT. They pronounce that name with a really neat Castilian Spanish accent, but it's not the way I pronounced it. The nice thing about the MetaDB connector is that it allows you, it's very similar to the way Alfresco constraints work in the content model, but instead of having that constraint be pulled within Alfresco, you can pull it from an external database. And we've got dynamic constraints in Alfresco 4.0 that lets you do some of that, but the MetaDB connector can let you plug into an existing relational database. They support like 5 different data stores, all the popular databases that Alfresco does, they support. And so that way you can say, you can pull in the property, the values for a content model property that's related to that constraint out of the database. So I didn't demo it because it was kind of complex. You know, you have to have a database loaded with data, and then you have to set up your content model, and I just didn't feel like we had time for it. But it's a pretty cool add-on, and if that's a need you have, you should check that out. Now, the repository size dashlet was done by Tribloom. It's highly rated, and I think Chris contributed it. If not, it was your team. And it's pretty slick. Quite frequently, as an admin, you want to find out how much space Alfresco is using on disk, and the repository size dashlet lets you do that. You just add it to your admin dashboard. It tells you the disk space. It tells you the indexes separate from that. It tells you the content separate from that, and it tells you your cache. It's pretty slick. You got to compile it, and I had a compile dependency. I'm sure it was some simple thing. I should just spend another hour, but yeah. Okay, so the link was wrong for the amps, so you don't necessarily have to compile it, but I thought you did, so that's why I'm not demoing it for you. But if it's something you need, talk to Tribloom and work with them, and it's pretty slick. The nzip action is pretty slick. It's done by one of our French community members, and it's very simple. You upload a zip file, and you click on it, and it gives you 3 options. Unzip here, unzip into a subdirectory, unzip into another location. You click the button, it works, except it didn't. I'm not sure why it didn't, and their issue tracker is all in French. A lot of our dashlets are done by our French community, and that's great, and that's wonderful, and I need to learn French, but I didn't get it prepared for today. If it's a need you have, though, it's probably worth the effort. Rather than writing your own, it's probably worth figuring it out, figuring out how to use their action. It was really easy to install. I'm just not sure. It didn't give me any clear error or anything. They also did a multiple RSS feed dashlet. That's kind of nice. The current dashlet in Alfresco, we have an RSS feed dashlet, and it lets you bring in a single feed, and you can view that news item. The multiple RSS feed dashlet is pretty simple. It does the exact same thing, but you can have as many feeds as you want, and it just sticks them all in the same little window. It's kind of nice for aggregating information. It installed fine. It's really easy. It's just a single amp. But there's a bug in the configuration. I eventually got it working, but it was kind of painful, and I wasn't comfortable demoing it. So if it's something you need, it's probably an easy fix. Somebody probably has already fixed their issue tracker in French. Feel free to check it out. It's probably easier for you to use their code and collaborate with them than to write your own. So let's take a more detailed look at a couple add-ons. So this is what we're going to discuss today. Oh, I forgot to edit my slides. The unzip action and multiple RSS feed, as I explained, we're not going to be demoing right now. But the model designer we'll discuss in more detail. So Mike Priest's model designer already has a 1-hour discussion on the Tech Talk Live, like I mentioned. And the Alfresco model designer by BECPG meets the same use case in a slightly different way. And what I found as I compared the two is that they both take very similar approaches to the problem, but each one has slightly different features. And so if Mike's doesn't solve your problem, you should check out the BECPG one, or vice versa. I think they're both quality tools. They both seem to be used by a lot of people. And I didn't see a clear reason to prefer one over the other, so it's worth you checking out both. I should also mention before we go on that the doing an Alfresco model designer in Alfresco is on our roadmap. It's always been on our roadmap, and so I felt comfortable to discuss it as if it wasn't. But Mike tells me it really is on the roadmap this time. But he told me that yesterday, so I'm still going to go ahead with the presentation and include this. But the key is that what Mike explained to me, and if you're really curious, you should have that conversation with him, Mike Farman, is that the way we're going to approach it is very much a least common denominator, very simple use cases sort of solution. And so even after we put it into, even after we get it prepared for release, which isn't going to be in 4.2, you'll probably still be interested to know about some of these other tools that can meet more advanced use cases. Okay, but before I go much further, I forgot to mention that I just need to be really clear. You know, builder beware, I didn't author these. So I played with each of them for a half day, prepared a demo. You know, I'm not the expert here. I haven't reviewed the code. I can't guarantee they're ready for production. I'm not certain I'm pretty certain they have some bugs in them somewhere. But I think I have a pretty good sense for how mature they are. But I can't say this is the best way to meet your goals, okay? You got to do your own research. My goal is to help you get a leg up on some of these tools. I'm telling you everything I know, and it isn't much, so that's kind of where we're at. So my environment, in case you're curious, I'm running Linux. I'm running JDK 1.7, Firefox. If you try to do what I do in the demo, that might be useful for you. We're going to move on. Click. There it goes. So the model designer. So the model designer, it's a GUI designer. It produces models it produces content models and forms in Share. It stores them in data dictionary models and in data dictionary config for the forms. It pretty much just generates the XML for you. And it works pretty good. It does not yet support Alfresco 4.2. I should ask Mike, does yours support 4.2 yet? Yeah. Mike's does support 4.2 already. Okay, so it's in SVN, but he hasn't uploaded the AMP yet. So if you need 4.2 support, then check out Mike's first. I did talk to the BECPG guys, and they're working on it as time permits. So both will get there eventually. But the point is, building content models is hard. Building content models takes a lot of XML editing. Building forms and config files, building forms requires XML config files. In Share, it gets kind of painful, and these GUI tools help. But what I found with both of these tools is these are not ways to learn this concept. If you don't already understand how to build content models in Alfresco or already understand how to build forms in Share, then these tools are mystifying. And they're helpful for people who know what they're doing. They're not going to replace you reading up on these things. So if you want to get started on this, Jeff's blog at ECM Architect, his Alfresco Developer Series has some good tutorials on content modeling. The Alfresco, the Professional Alfresco book that we published about 1.5 years ago has two really good chapters on content modeling. You need to go through the basics before these tools will do you any good. So with the model designer, the key thing about the demo is that they produced a really good demo. It's 10 minutes long, and it's on YouTube. And as I was preparing a demo, I realized that it's probably a lot easier and more effective for you to just look at the YouTube demo that they put together. But I do want to give you a sense for the UI and a really basic sense for how it's set up. But understand that the YouTube demo, if you're going to play with this much, you really should check out the YouTube demo. Come on, mouse. OK. Come on, mouse. I apologize for a moment of technical difficulties. My touchpad appears to have died. You got an external mouse, Paul? Anybody have an external mouse? It's been iffy for a week, but it just had to last another hour. Keyboard's fine. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for saving the day. Okay, thanks. Perfect. Oh, great. It looks more severe than that. Oh, come on, ESP. Oh, good. Hey, thank you. So thank you very much. OK, so let's grab a web browser, bring it over here. Actually, let's do this a slightly different way. OK, so now I can see local. So when you install the model designer and you log in as an administrator, so this is stock Alfresco. This is stock model designer. So I haven't touched anything. So you just get a menu option in the more list as an admin. Oh, I timed out. And when you come in, you've got an area in the middle with where you'll do most of your design. You have configuration on the left. You have your model information as well. So configuration is where share forms appear, and model information is where your content model appears. It's very confusing for me at first. You gotta define your model before you can work on forms, and so just make sure you understand that. So we come in. There's namespace defined. There's imports defined. And we come in. We can add new items. And you can select new types, new aspects, constraints, imports, namespaces, data types. We can do a new type. We'll call this custom type 1. Are the fonts big enough? Yeah, OK. And you can say where this font comes, where the type comes from. We're going to do a content. Once it's in, we can go ahead and say on this type, we can do a new property. And in the property, you can do associations and constraints, things like that. Once you've defined stuff, you can do custom aspects I mentioned, things like that. The menu is determined by what you have highlighted on the left. So if we come back up to the model, you can publish. Publish is going to generate the XML file and drop it into the data dictionary /models, and it'll actually load that dynamically. And if we come into the form, we can say define certain elements. you get your config. We can go ahead and say on this form, we want to put a property. Sorry. On the form, we can put our property. Got to select the right thing. I'm obviously not thinking straight when I'm in front of it. There it goes. So there's our type we've put on the form. On the type, we can come through and say, here's our default fields. And you can drag into the fields onto your default form, different widgets that you're interested in. Where is it? There. So on our default form, we can drag in a widget, or put our date widget in. And once you've defined everything, you go ahead and finish it up. You can publish that form. And when you hit publish, it generates the XML file and pushes it into /config. So again, I can't spend much time on this. Wow, can't believe we're almost out of time. But that gives you a flavor for how this is set up. So you have to have a pretty good understanding of how the content modeling works. And once you do that, everything, it makes sense. The YouTube video is really good at explaining how it works, so it's worth checking out. Okay. So going back to presenter view. Okay, so a couple quick things. Installation is just a couple amps. The partial instructions within the tar in a README file, but there's better instructions in the wiki. When you install the amps, it tells you that you need to use -- force. If you've ever installed amps, amps are copying files into the Alfresco WAR, and that can be very dangerous. It's the right way to install an extension as long as you don't overwrite core Alfresco files. Overwriting them might make sense, but you got to be very careful during upgrades if you've overwritten any of the Alfresco files. And so the module management tool that installs amps, it warns you. It says, you're overwriting an Alfresco file. Are you sure you want to do this? Use -- force. So normally you don't want to do that for an add-on you're installing. I guess it was necessary in earlier versions of Alfresco or earlier versions of the add-on. But when I installed it here, it wasn't necessary. So you don't have to worry about an instruction. And then if you're using an older version of Alfresco, there's a little trick. You gotta automatically deploy that module. Okay, next item is the shell tools. So this was written by Florian, and he's one of our European community contributors. And it's a really slick project. I heard about it fairly recently, a couple weeks ago. And I said, that is so cool, I want to show everybody. And he said, no, it's like proof of concept. I'm just barely playing with it. It's not for use by other people. But I talked him into it, and I'm showing it to you anyway. But the thing to remember is that it really is, this is a young project, but I think it's really cool. It's a bunch of shell scripts written in Bash. And they use curl to hit standard JSON web scripts. And so there's a library file that you shouldn't be calling directly, and it gets called by everything else. And it allows you to do all sorts of things from the command line. You can create sites, you can delete sites, you can upload content, you can download content, all these things. Now this is really slick for a guy like me, more of a sysadmin type than a core developer, because it allows you to do things like set up your test environment, do integration testing, do automated tests, do bulk imports, all from Unix tools that are just so much fun. So it's a good development tool. I wouldn't use it on a production system. I really wouldn't use it on a production system. So let's show you a little bit about how it works. We're got to pay attention to time. So we do have time for a minute. So Okay, so you get a variety of scripts here. Let me keep my list of items here. Okay, so there's a variety of scripts. Some of the scripts are more polished than others. Most of the ones I played with basically work pretty good. So we can go ahead and we can say, let's get a list of groups out of Alfresco. So there's our list of groups out of Alfresco. There's a contributors group, email contributors, Alfresco administrators, and all the site-specific groups for the default SWSDP site that Paul put together to demo Alfresco. One of the really nice things, Florian says this is a total proof of concept, but he took the time to set up the -- help flags for everything. And so if you ever have a question about how one of these tools are used, you can use -- help, and it's fairly good explanation of how the tool's used. You've got your command options, you've got your arguments, you got your explanation. It wasn't hard at all to figure out how to use these. And so we can go ahead and say, let's create a group. Let's create a staff group. And we get the output JSON. That's debugging. You can turn it off, but it's on by default at the moment. So now we can go ahead and say, let's list our groups again, and there's our staff group. You can be a little more complex than that. We're going to make a parent group called staff. We're going to make an Alfresco employees. It is going to be the group description, and the group we're building is going to be called employees, or employee. So we go ahead and build that. Let's do one more. And this one we're going to call external contractors, so we can keep track of the difference. And now when we list our groups, we've got staff, we've got employee, we've got contractors. Now if we go into, go back into share and look at our groups and browse our groups, we've got our staff and we've got our child groups. So you can just do it right on the command line. And you can script it. Let's, I'm not going to list the groups again. We're going to do alf create user. And we'll give it username our Esplin. We'll give it an easy password. We'll give it first name, last name, email. And we'll give it a group. And so here is the JSON output of all the details it built. Most stuff it just left empty. And if we do list users now, we can see that there's now an Esplin user. And we can go ahead and log out as administrator and log in as Esplin. So let's try that one more time. Make sure I'm paying attention to how I type. Whew, it worked. So, really nice way to build integration tests. But wait, there's more. You can do search. So we're going to do alf search. We're going to search for plugs. And we get a workspace ID, an Alfresco node ID for an image that has plugs. It's an image of 2 plugs that Paul has in part of that default demo site. Now the nice thing is, it's shell tools. So we can do all sorts of great stuff. Let's pipe in that workspace ID into metadata.sh. And there's all the metadata on that image. And then we can use another library called JSON that you actually have to install to use the shell tools. And we want to get the MIME type out. And it is just called MIME type. And that's how we know it's an image. You can download it. You can save it locally. Attaching the MIME type is a little tricky when you download, but it works. And you can pipe that in. You can chain these commands together. You can use all your standard Unix commands like WL. You want to know how many users are on your system? Do alf list users. and send that into WL, and you'll get WC-L, and you'll get the number of users on your system. You can set up cron jobs to do reporting. Again, not necessarily the most performant way to do this. I wouldn't recommend it on production without some consideration, but it works pretty good. Installation was pretty easy. It's your normal Nix stuff, bash, grep, perl, curl. The JSON's a bit harder though. You have to install a bunch of JSON libraries, including JSON, which is a shell wrapper for JSON libraries. You got to build it yourself. It wasn't hard to install, but yeah, you do have to set it up and you have to get on your path. Now, configuration can be done one of two ways. You can pass, every time you call one of these shell variables, shell scripts, you can pass it your host name and your login name and all these credentials and your endpoints. Or you can set up all this information in your environment as shell variables. So for this example, I did in my environment. It's got some really neat good points. You know, these are Unix tools. It's shell. It's just great fun. Unix pipes are just the coolest thing ever. So you can have lots of fun with that. Just realized I'm not in presentation mode, so you can see those okay. Okay. But some concerns, of course. It's a young project. It needs some cleanup. It needs some polish. It's worth playing with. It's worth contributing to. But understand that it's still limited documentation. It's a couple weeks old. It was a proof of concept. But it's a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy using it and contribute back. But like I said, I'm not sure about all the implications of hitting Alfresco with a bunch of curl scripts. I wouldn't do it on your production server. I'd probably need some performance benchmarking, some looking at. But it's pretty slick. OK, we have just a couple minutes to look at the last one, which is the share import export scripts. So this is a Will Abson project. It's a really cool project. It's a very mature project. It's been around a couple years. I used it quite a bit to prepare demo environments. But it's a bunch of scripts written in Python. It's under an Apache license. It does Python HTTP auth. It then hits JSON web scripts. It uses ACP to package data, and it allows you to pull sites out of Alfresco as individual bundles and import them into separate Alfrescos or into the same Alfresco. You can manage sites and users. You can do records management sites. You can do quick start sites. It's pretty flexible. Will's done a great job in maintaining it and improving it. I like it for a lot of the same reasons I like shell tools. Integration tests, test environment setups, default site configurations is very useful for that. At one point, I had a collection of sites I used for demos. And so if I was demoing a financial services group, I could install my financial services site. Healthcare, you could do your healthcare site. It's a good development tool that way. Again, I can think of cases where I would use this on production. I actually have used this on production to pull a site out that I wanted to inspect for specific reasons or to archive data. But again, you should be really cautious with stuff like that in production. So let's do the demo real quick. So Alfresco, site import export, share import export. Okay, so we have export site, export categories, export groups, import site, import categories, import groups. The most valuable part here to understand is that you'll interact with most of these through the import site or export site. They call all the other scripts. So let me get my demo script over here so I can see. Again, there's pretty good help. So if you do export site.py-help, it tells you all the details. And you can go through and figure out exactly how to set these commands and what all the options are. And I'm just going to cut and paste this big command that kind of shows off this system. So what this command does is we have logged in. We've exported the entire demo site. And we build it all as ACPs. And we've logged out. And you can take a minute if you want and vim into the JSON file and see all the site configuration. You can unpack the ACPs and see the data. But we're out of time. So what we are going to do is if you come into Alfresco and we search for sites, you'll see this is the website design project, our sample to demo Alfresco. If we come in here, there's a whole bunch of images. And now is where we get really crazy. We're going to purge this site. And that data is now gone. So if we come back in here, I was not supposed to click that because it's not going to find it and it will complain. So let's see if we can get out of that. OK, so we come back up to sites. We say search for sites. And I don't have any sites in here now. It is gone. But we can come back in and we can say, let's import this site. And we'll bring in that JSON configuration file that knows where everything else is. It's gone ahead. It's created everything. It can even add the members back. It actually it has trouble sometimes when you add the same members multiple times. But it worked OK this time because the site was completely gone. We search, the site's back, and so is all the data. One of the really nice things about share, import, export, well, Will deserves the clapping because he wrote all the code. One of the really nice things about share, import, export is that it comes with a bunch of demo sites that you can play with as well. So you can go ahead and say, when you download it, there's a data folder, and it's got definitions of a handful of sites there. And so you can see what it does, play with it, load stuff up. This is where it has trouble installing the same user multiple times. So, and I'm supposed to be done. So let me just close by saying, giving you a little bit of thought on share, import, export. Oh yeah, installation. It's really easy to install. Pretty much you download it and you run it. You do have to have a Python interpreter. But if you don't, then you can do better. So that's OK. I'm teasing. Good points. It includes all the sample data. It has the help flags. It's pretty mature. There's a couple really cool utilities that it uses for this. One that I like is ping.py because it blocks until Alfresco is ready, and then it unblocks. And so if you start Alfresco and run ping.py, it'll just keep hitting share. And once it can log into share, it'll exit, and you can move on with other things. So combine that with shell tools, and you can get some pretty cool automated install scenarios. Concerns. It doesn't export everything. Passwords don't get exported. Activity feeds don't get exported. Customizations don't get exported. Notifications don't get exported. Be cautious, depending on what you want to do. My biggest concern really, though, is portability. In the past, I was unable to export a site from 3.3 and import it into 3.4. Exporting from Community Edition and importing in Enterprise might not work. This is not a migration tool, but it is really good at what it's meant for. So hopefully that overview of Alfresco add-ons is useful for you. Hopefully you have some fun things to look at and explore in more detail. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I can put you in touch with the authors of this code who actually know more about it than I do. So thank you.